Hello. All right. Hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4173. Today's date is 25 July 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 8:28 a.m. All right. Let's just jump into the question. All right. Let's go. All right. So question is, um, should business use it? Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to build a AI, artificial intelligence, such a AI that could predict the future. Before I wanted to build such a AI, I wanted to aware of all the possible consequences. I went to ChatGPT. I tell that I wanted to build AI that could predict the future. Suggest me 100 question. ChatGPT kind of like a suggest me hundreds of question, and this is one of those question. The question, by the question actually in the mobile phone, but while recording I cannot do anything at all. So that's why I wrote the question in here. This is the question. The second one, by the way. Book. Yeah, I don't want to talk about this book because if I started talking about this book, I cannot stop to talk about this book. Alright, yeah, let's talk about something that key. First of all, if I build a, a AI that could predict the possible future, so if such thing will happen, or if such thing will gonna happen, then what might gonna happen? Like what changes will gonna happen? Like what is actually like basically is this thing? What is actually happened with the business? Okay, that's a really good thing. Okay, so first of all, let me clear up a couple of things first. Okay, um, if I'm gonna say like I wanted to build AI that could predict the future, it means that the it does not kind of like a tell you the kind of like a things that this is exactly as it is actually happened. No, it's not. It kind of like a do the simulation, millions of simulation for you to kind of like making sure you will kind of like take a right decision for your business, for your organization, for your everything. Let's understand couple of stuff. Okay, let's just say I am a clothing company. Okay, or yeah, or food company. Let's just say I'm kind of like a somebody food company. Okay, or kind of like a somebody like a basically let's just say I am a kind of like a not food company. Food company would be like it's not really that. Let's say clothing company would be much more better. Okay, so let's just say I am a clothing company, and I kind of like a make a clothes. I have kind of like a textile business, and kind of like this that na ki if kind of like a something, if I have a kind of like a things that it could kind of like a predict the possibility of the future, then what will gonna happen that ki the stockpile will not gonna happen. What's a stockpile? Like basically is this thing na ki sometimes we kind of like make a lot of clothes. Textile business kind of like make a lot of clothes because they don't know the kind of like how much kind of like some supply and demand would be there and things like that, and that depend on every location. Okay, so if I knew that in the Lucknow probably we need a kind of like a maybe almost like a 10 thousands of clothes over there, so we would kind of like a simply give them 10,000 of clothes and kind of like a sell them. We will not kind of like give them over extra and things and that, and that the how much kind of like a simply the uh, demand it need, we could kind of like a supply exactly as it is, not too much, not too less. Okay, yeah. And also whatever the kind of like a demand that it has, they kind of like a simply making sure that I will kind of like a fulfill their demand as quickly as possible, because I knew that on specific location how many people are kind of like a simply wants my clothes and things and that, and that. So if something actually happened, then the the stockpile will not gonna happen. The kind of like a simply overproduction of kind of like a product will not gonna happen, and we would kind of like a simply that key we would make a, such a kind of like a simply clothes that are kind of like most of people are wanted to wear and things and that, and that. So it is kind of like a really helpful. The wastage of kind of like any kind of like a some product or wastage of any kind of like a some material will not gonna happen. Okay, same thing happened with everybody, like every kind of like a material, every kind of like a business who are kind of like a creating any kind of like a products and things and that they would kind of like understand the demand and supply. Okay, how much demand that it has, they kind of like provided that kind of like a supply. So basically is this thing that this will not gonna happen, like basically because of this thing demand and supply always be balanced. Okay, yeah, it's never been too much and it's never been too less. Okay, why? Because of that we already knew how much demand will gonna happen and we will kind of like meet that supply. Okay, so basically is this saying the prices of company will not gonna kind of like fluctuate too much or kind of like a downsize too much? No, because we already knew how much demand that we have and we already make sure that we should supposed to supply that demand and things like that. So that fluctuation demand supply will not gonna happen too much. It's a kind of like a some this thing that key, it's a kind of like a some just little bit of constant, maybe little bit kind of like over there, not too much, but just kind of like a things that it would be kind of like a much more better a balanced approach. Okay, same thing happened with the kind of like a something the healthcare business. Okay, healthcare business, pharmacy and things and that they already knew that ki where is the kind of like a patients and where are kind of like a some healthcare system should supposed to be kind of like a put lot of attention. So they put attention over there, like basically villages or kind of like a crowded area or things and that and they are kind of like a try to kind of like inspect the people over there, kind of like a making sure they are kind of like a healthcare is really good or not. Okay, what they should supposed to be eat, what they should supposed to be not and things and that healthcare system is also kind of like something like basically is this thing that na ki usually right now people are kind of like a went into the healthcare system and try to fix their body and things and that. But when this prediction model will actually happen, then kind of like what will gonna happen that the healthcare system is kind of like instead of kind of like fixing the problem right now, they will kind of like fixing the problem in the future. That means like they understand that ki where is this virus actually came from. So if they know that ki this virus actually came from this particular location and things and that, so probably they will kind of like try to kind of like somebody isolate that particular area or kind of like fix that particular kind of like a disease spreading kind of like virus and try to kill that virus as quickly as early as possible so that spread will not gonna happen. Okay, another thing is that na ki basically is this thing that ki like like if we could kind of like predict the possible future, we would understand the like a like lot of things like regarding about healthcare, regarding about stuff and stuff like that. It's too like basically it's this thing na ki if I'm gonna say this one thing that if I could predict if I could predict a kind of like a possible future, then it might gonna add so many value, like a wastage of product will not gonna happen, like yeah, so many things. Okay, yeah, it's just like I don't really have like what I realized that na ki entire world will kind of like always something shift that it could kind of like predict the possible future. But also again this kind of like words are kind of like a very dreamy by the way, but I have to be kind of like understand this thing. It's not Adam will kind of like give you prediction exactly as it is. Like for the prediction point of perspective, it kind of like a based on simulation process. Okay, in the simulation process it kind of like do a lot of kind of like some ups and downs and things and that. Obviously in the simulation process, simulation will gonna happen regarding about how much data that data Adam has, and Adam has a kind of like so much amount of data because Adam is actually backed up by the artifact, and artifact has a kind of like an entire data of what does kind of like people actually think in all around the world and stuff like that. So because of the data, Adam would kind of like simulate much more properly. But it's not about just the data of the human. I need a kind of like a data about the kind of like a some machine. Or I need data about the kind of like a weather pattern, forecast, and things like that, which is also I could able to be get it. It's not like that this information I cannot able to get it. But still, is this thing na ki there are so many possible consequences. Okay, yeah, like basically I'm not really sure that ki in the simulation process how much it kind of like a simulate, because if I'm gonna say this thing that ki what if the Adam could kind of like somebody cure the kind of like a virus or bacteria or things and that or kind of like invent something that could kind of like a something that ki solve the possible problem in the future, then this is kind of like a very different than kind of like a kind of like a predict the future. Because of that ki Adam might gonna kind of like a something invent something, and when it started inventing something, then that is I'm not really sure is it right or wrong. Why it is not right and wrong? It is because of that na ki inventing something is kind of like a meant for the right purposes for the people, right? But how do I supposed to define that thing with probability architecture? But still it is a kind of like a lot of stuff. Okay, yeah, like basically it's this thing na, like basically I am not really sure that ki how much it kind of like a things, but I knew that ki I could able to build this thing. It's not really that ki I cannot able to build this thing, but still I have to make sure that the utilization of kind of like a something the Adam should supposed to be happen right way. But still Adam does not able to be predict when the chaos will gonna happen or butterfly will gonna happen. Butterfly effect is the kind of like a chaos theory will gonna happen. When the chaos theory happen, Adam cannot able to predict that much well, and if it cannot able to predict that much well, then it just not okay, because prediction is a kind of like a very much depend on kind of like a pattern, finding a pattern and kind of like understanding the pattern regarding about that. If there is no pattern at all, then probably is this thing Adam cannot able to predict the possible future. Okay, yeah, so it does not depend like Adam can kind of like simply predict the possible future regarding about the kind of like simply the they have kind of like a static pattern or things and that. But if there is a kind of like a lot of chaos will gonna happen, then obviously Adam cannot able to predict the possible consequences. Basically the mutual fund, the stock market and things like that. And that is completely depend on chaos theory, and obviously the Adam cannot able to be kind of like simply predict the possible future for kind of like a prediction and things like that. Okay, but still if the kind of if I build the AI and businesses are kind of like a businesses will kind of like add so much amount of value. Okay, yeah, but like it's not kind of like a shortcut for them to kind of like achieve the kind of like a goals and run the business and things and that. No, it's a kind of like a things that if your product is really good, obviously Adam will kind of like really help you to kind of like distribute your product as much as well to the wide audience and things and that. But if your product is kind of like genuinely wrong and things and that, then Adam does not kind of like give you that. Even if the Adam knows that how should you supposed to do this thing. Let's just say you kind of like created a porn website, and basically you are kind of like saying this Adam that I created the porn website, I wanted to kind of like somebody expand my business and things and that. Adam does not kind of like give you that, or maybe Adam will not kind of like predict you any kind of like a possible future, because Adam architecture is kind of like a based on probability ratio, which is does not kind of like does not kind of like rely on right and wrong thing. But Adam also have kind of like follow some sort of rules that he because of his innovation or because of his kind of like a prediction, it does not kind of like a harm to the societies or things and that. So Adam try to kind of like simply not to predict such a kind of like a possible future that might gonna kind of like create chaos in the future and things and that Adam does not do that thing. Okay, yeah, this is kind of like a things. If I'm gonna say it will kind of like predict the lot of possibility regarding about like if I'm gonna say like just prediction the possibility what might gonna happen, there are kind of like millions and billions of kind of like advantages and things and that. But there is also one thing that now every action comes with the consequences, and it's not really that if the every company are kind of like simply try to kind of like win, but not every company will gonna win. Like let me tell you what exactly happened. Okay, yeah, if I build the prediction model, company will not gonna kind of like stay here and it will kind of like stay there. No, it's not. It will be grown actually happen, but that growth is not kind of like too much. Why? Because the Adam prediction model is try to fix in its own thing, means like that ki where is a kind of like a wastage of money actually happens, so try to reduce that thing, or kind of like somebody the stuff and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, growth is not kind of like a depend on Adam. Growth is actually depend on how much kind of like somebody the value that you provided to the customer and things and that. If you are kind of like providing really good value, obviously you will kind of like a growth. But if you are not providing that much kind of a good value, then this is not really right thing to do. But still is this thing that's not, it's a very like if I try to think about that possible future, I can't able to be think like that, because there is a millions and billions of consequences. It's just very difficult to understand and things and that. But still can business people will kind of utilize Adam? Yes, definitely. I will gonna build Adam for kind of like for exactly that particular purpose. It's not for the massy people, but it's for the businesses, and it's for the kind of like some government organizations and institutions. It's for that which kind of like handle the community of the people. Okay, not a kind of like individual people. Okay, so yes, it will definitely gonna add so much amount of value to the business, to the organization level, to the kind of like some the community, to the kind of like some government too. Okay, yeah, because it can. All right, so this then I have to be in here right now. I'm kind of like a quitting very quickly artifact. Why? Because of that key I have to lot of stuff to do. All right, so this is it. This end.